Namaste to everyone. My name is Dilip Ratnani. First of all, thank you very much for joining us today. Today we will discuss and learn the 6 progressive states of the soul, a journey from bondage to liberation. Before I start my presentation, I would like to request your undivided attention so I can explain all the slides without any interruption. All scriptures are meant to be learned from a competitive guru. I'm only a student and still learning. I'm not a qualified teacher. This is just my viewpoint. All mistakes are mine. In this slide, there are 6 eternal entities, 6 eternal timeless entities of the universal context. God or Ishvara is a conscious in nature, most subtle, and is present everywhere, omnipresent. Eternal Sadguru, conscious in nature, most subtle, omnipresent. Akshar Brahm, conscious in nature, subtle entity, 1/4 omnipresent. The time, all 3 attributes are not applicable to time. The Mool Prakriti is inert in nature, not conscious, inert in nature, the less subtle with limited existence. And finally, the soul is a conscious entity, less subtle, limited existence. So today we'll focus the 6th entity, the soul. First, we must understand that the soul is one of the 6 eternal entities. So souls are conscious subtle entities which have a limited existence. And by virtue of their limited existence, they are also a bit ignorant. So you can say that their limited existence is also a partial contributor to their ignorance. In this third slide, we'll discuss the virtuous path to eligibility. Who can be the eligible for this journey? The virtuous path to eligibility is in the 4S framework of Vahingam Yoga, which is the sadhana, the swadhyaya, satsang, and seva. In English, you call it meditation, service, good company, and self-reading. When we say sadhana, means spiritual practice or disciplined effort. Sadhana refers to a regular practice that purify the mind and strengthen spiritual awareness. It includes meditation, inner discipline, self-control, and consistent effort on the path through sadhana. Through sadhana, the seeker moves from theory to direct experience. In brief, the sadhana is a personal effort to transform oneself. The second S model is Swadhyaya, which is self-study. Swadhyaya means studying sacred teaching and reflecting on one's own inner state. It is not only reading scripture but understanding their meaning and applying them on life. It helps develop right knowledge, clarity, and discrimination. In brief, Swadhyay, which is self-study, is the cultivation of wisdom through study and reflection. And the third S model is good company or satsang, meaning company of truth or association with the wise. Satsang means being in the presence of the truth, saintly people, or elevating teachings. It helps purify thoughts, strengthen faith, and keep the seeker inspired. Good company shapes the character and keeps one aligned with the higher ideals. So, in brief, satsang is a supportive spiritual environment that nurture growth. Finally, the fourth S is seva. We can call it service or selfless service. Seva is a serving others without ego, pride, or expectation of reward. It develops humility, compassion, and detachment. Service becomes a way to express spiritual value through action. In brief, seva is the practice of spirituality through selfless action. In brief summary, the four S work together. The sadhana builds inner discipline, Swadhyay builds understanding, Satsang builds the right influence, and Seva builds humility and purity in action. Now the question arises, why must one acquire eligibility? To find the Sadguru, to learn Brahm Vidya, to absorb and retain the knowledge, to rapidly advance in meditation, to recognize the knowledgeable yogis. These are the 5 things you need. The Sadguru is obtained as a good consequences of conduct of multiple good deeds in several past births. What is Brahm Vidya? Brahman, the ultimate reality, the absolute or the supreme consciousness. Vidya means knowledge, wisdom, or learning. Brahm Vidya, the ultimate reality, the knowledge about ultimate reality. Brahm Vidya is the knowledge of ultimate reality, the knowledge of all eternal entities, including the soul itself. In Upanishad and Vedantas, Brahm Vidya refers to the highest spiritual knowledge that leads to the self-realization and liberation. We call this moksha. Brahm Vidya not just an intellectual knowledge, but direct realization that one's true self, which is Atma, is one with Brahman. Brahm Vidya is required for liberation and is preached to only eligible seeker. And the complete knowledge and brilliance of Brahm Vidya descends only in a deserving and eligible soul. Only pure soul can rapidly advance in meditation to reach their destination. That is why one must acquire eligibility. These are some key concepts of Brahm Vidya and liberation. It's an experiential knowledge. Knowledge and practice are 2 facets of Brahm Vidya. Yoga based on knowledge and yoga based on deeds are both subsets of Brahm Vidya. luxuries of life versus bliss, mortal world virtues versus progress in yoga meditation, aligned, firm, and beyond, aligned thoughts, speech, act, plus firm knowledge beyond mortal world, freedom from Prakriti, Karma Yogi versus Jnana Yogi, art of living versus breakout, Karma Yogi as masters of good deeds and etiquettes. So these are the some key concept of Brahm Vidya and liberation. Again, the Brahm Vidya is a knowledge of ultimate reality, the knowledge of all eternal entities, including the soul itself. Brahm Vidya refers to the highest spiritual knowledge that leads to self-realization and liberation, which we call moksha. Brahm Vidya, not just an intellectual knowledge. I'm repeating again, the Brahm Vidya is not an intellectual knowledge, but direct realization that one's true self is one with Brahman. Brahm Vidya is required for liberation and is preached to only eligible seekers. And the complete knowledge and brilliance of Brahm Vidya descends only in deserving and eligible soul. Only pure soul can rapidly advance in meditation to reach their destination. In this slide, you can see all yoga forms are based within the domain of Prakriti. The Karma Yoga, the Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Raj or Hatha Yoga are all within the domain of Prakriti. Only Vahingam Yoga ventures beyond Prakriti in conscious domain. So that is the difference we need to understand. All these yoga forms are within the Prakriti zone, but we have to go beyond this Prakritic zone. Only Vahingam Yoga ventures beyond Prakriti in conscious domain. Now in this slide, you can see the mind is a challenge. The biggest obstacle in this journey is our own mind. That is why the mind is a challenge, hinders spiritual growth. So we need to tame the mind, tame, recondition, reform, transform, and redirect the mind. And then build the eligibility. All yoga forms build the eligibility. And then the fourth, mind versus eligibility, is controlled mind is eligible soul. So mind is a challenge. We need to work on our mind. We need to tame the mind, build the eligibility, and controlled mind is considered eligible soul. The Bhagavad Gita described the mind as restless, turbulent, and stubborn. In chapter 6, Lord Krishna explained that an uncontrolled mind as our worst enemy, while a disciplined mind becomes our greatest friend. It is tamed through not forcible suppression, but through consistent practice and detachment. In Gita, they call it Abhyas and Virag. Abhyasa and Viraga. Virag and Abhyas, two things, practice and detachment. Abhyas and Virag. We need to understand the relationship between a controlled mind and an eligible soul. Taming of the mind and the purification of the mind is done in the first three stages of Vahingam Yoga. The taming of the mind And purification of a mind is done in first three stage of Vahingam Yoga. So that is why we need to understand mind versus eligibility. The fourth point here is a controlled mind is equal to eligible soul. Internal organs of soul. Four internal organs of the soul. Those are mind, intellect, chit, and ankar. In Hindi, we call man, buddhi, chit, and ankar. Mind, intellect, chit, which is memory, ankar, which we can call ego. These four organs of the soul through which it functions in the Prakriti, or in the illusionary nature, or in the mortal world. During this presentation, we will use these three terms interchangeably. The Prakriti is the same, the mortal world is the same as illusionary nature. So I would say Prakriti, illusionary nature, and mortal world are same thing. Souls are conscious and unipresent entities. Since they are conscious, they have knowledge. However, since souls are unipresent, their knowledge is not complete as equal to the other eternal entities like Ishvara, eternal Sadguru, or Akshar Brahm. Since souls are eternal, they have a permanent existence. Their existence is independent of time. In other words, they have always existed and will always continue to exist. So soul has four internal organs: the mind, intellect, the chit, and ankar. Now the question arises, why do these four internal organs exist? They have been created to cause or facilitate the outer flow of the consciousness of the soul. I'm repeating again. These four organs have been created to cause or facilitate the outer flow of the consciousness of the soul into this mortal world. In other words, without the inspiration of these four organs, the five sense organs and the five organs of deed cannot function at all. These four organs connect the soul to the Prakriti or mortal world. Without these four organs, the five organs of deed, five sense organs cannot function. Three of these are constructed out of five main elements, except the mind. In next slides, we will discuss the detail of these each organ of soul. In this slide, we'll discuss the six progressive states of the soul as its journey from bondage to salvation or liberation. So the journey of the soul from bondage to salvation begins with the gross mortal body that you see at the bottom of this cake. Here, subtle body, the gross body. It begins with the gross mortal body, which is the Sthul Sharir, which all of us are, which is visible from our body. From there, it progressive towards the Sukshma Sharir. We call it subtle body, which is the subtle part of our bodies, which we don't see. which is very much part of our bodies. From there on, the soul transition to the causal body, which is known as a Karana Sharira, and on the megacausal, which is the Mahakarana Sharira. From there on, it goes to the Kevalya Sharir, which is the detached body form of the soul. And finally, the soul reaches its ultimate destination, which is the Swan or Hans state. In this slide, you can see 6 bodies, but we only see one body, which is gross body, and then subtle body, then causal body, then megacausal body, and then detached body, and then swan body. We will go in detail in next slides for each body, and I'll try to explain to understand how each body works and how soul progressively can go up from bondage to liberation. Now in this slide, we will learn what is gross body and the subtle body, the 5 sense organ plus 5 organ of deed is considered a gross body. 5 vital life forces and 4 inner organs of soul is considered a subtle body. So let's understand how the soul can get de-linked from gross and then subtle body slowly and gradually. Now, having no awareness of the gross body, which we are all during yoga meditation, this itself results in renunciation of our gross body. So when the soul further delinks itself from the vital life forces, which are the pranas, it delinks itself from the mind, which is the man, and it delinks itself from the intellect, which is buddhi. Then the subtle body or the sukshma sharir is also discarded. Now all acts of prakriti or illusionary nature are conducted through these vital life forces or pranas, the mind and the intellect. So when the consciousness of the soul transcends them in yoga meditation and stabilizes in the subtle zone further ahead, then what happened? The subtle body also get discarded. The subtle body is made up of 19 entities, the 10 sense organs of deed, the 5 vital life forces, which are the 5 pranas, the mind, the intellect, the chit, and the ahankar. So what we need to understand here, that when the consciousness of soul disassociate from these entities, then the subtle body also get discarded. In brief, these 10 plus 9 elements, they get discarded, then the soul get liberated from subtle body. First from the gross body and then from the subtle body. Now is the causal body. In a previous slide we discussed the gross body, 5 sense organ, 5 organs of deed is equal to gross body, 5 vital life forces and 4 inner organs of soul is considered as a subtle body, and 3 attributes of prakriti, which is mortal word, is equal to causal body. Now this process of delinking continues after the soul has delinked from the gross body, then from the subtle body. The next stage is when the soul delinks with the 3 attributes of the prakriti or illusionary nature or the mortal world. Again, 3 attributes of prakriti, which is causal body, then the soul gets delinked from three attributes of Prakriti or illusionary nature or the mortal body. Those are also called the Sat, Raj, and the Tam. We call the three attributes of Prakriti, Raj, Tam, and Sat. When three attributes are also done away with, then we say the soul has transcended, soul has elevated, or it has shed the causal body. The inspiration for the outward flow of energy of the soul arises due to its interaction with these three attributes. The conflict of these three attributes, which is called the Trighat of Triguna. Trighat of Triguna, it results in life beginning to flow into Prakriti or into the current of the illusionary nature or into the mortal world. These three energies are dragging the force, dragging the soul in mortal world. Trighat, Triguni Maya, they call it Triguni Maya. It results in life beginning to flow into the Prakriti or into the current of the illusionary nature or into the mortal world. So when the yogi detaches from these three attributes, he renounces the causal body. And what happened as a result? The outward flow of energy of the soul stops. Outward flow of soul towards Prakriti or energy, flow of energy of the soul towards Prakriti stops when we get detached from causal body. And the soul attains its consciousness or Chetan form, which is different from the form it had in the domain of Prakriti. So now at this stage, the soul is detached from the zone of the Prakriti and entering in a conscious zone. I'm repeating again here. The outward flow of energy of the soul stops and the soul attains its consciousness or Chetan form, which is different from the form it had in the domain of Prakriti. So the association of the soul with illusionary nature or with Prakriti is the causal body form of the soul. And therefore, when the three attributes of the mortal world or Prakriti are disassociated from the soul due to intense effort of yoga meditation, the soul comes into its pure form and it becomes brilliant and powerful. And due to the influence of the newfound status of the soul, the flow of Prakriti or the flow of the soul's energy into the mortal world stops, and this pure soul now progresses in a conscious devotion to attaining the pure bliss of the Lord. Again, this pure soul, once detached from causal body, is attaining the pure bliss of the Lord because now the soul is in pure consciousness zone. Up to the gross, subtle, and causal bodies, they're a Prakritic zone. Once the soul detached from Prakritic zone, it enters in a pure consciousness zone. So upon the disassociation of inert Prakriti from the soul, what do we witness? What do we witness? There is a complete absence of lethargy, sleep. Absolutely, there is no need for such yogi to sleep and still remain healthy. The soul here is in its native form or in its conscious form, and this is the symptom of the renunciation of the causal body. So, up to this slide, we have learned gross body, subtle body, and causal body. This is the Prakritic zone. Now, the next slide will elaborate on Mahakaran Sharir and other bodies in the next slide. Now, in this slide, we will discuss the mega causal body. We already discussed the gross body, the subtle body, the causal body. Now, the mega causal body. We move to the next state after the soul has moved out of the causal body further ahead, and here we deal with the memories. Now, actual peace and happiness which the soul is looking for, it cannot be obtained until the memories of the past sensory gratification and desires for more sensory gratification of Prakriti or the mortal world remain associated with the soul. If the memories of past sensory gratification and desires for more sensory gratification of Prakriti or the mortal world remain associated with the soul, so in the special upper level of yoga meditation, all ignorance, memories, and desires completely disappear. Why? Because they are destroyed from the root cause. This is a state of renunciation of mega causal state. So when all these desires and ignorance memories have disappeared, then we say that the mega causal state or the Mahakaran Sharir has also been transcended. Now this mega causal Sharir or the Mahakaran Sharir is also the state of the soul which had been acquired by it when it was coming down from the state of the salvation. Soul was initially in the state of salvation, but because of ignorance and because of ego developing into it, it had embarked on a downward journey due to its own will. And this happened because the soul developed a strong desire to perform deeds and bear their consequences in the mortal world of the Prakriti. So when the yogis get seated on a higher level of yoga meditation, after renouncing his gross body, subtle body, and causal body, the memories of sensory gratification of past, which we call sanskar, and which is stored in the chit, one of the internal organ of the soul, along with their desires associated with them, are also destroyed. And this is when we say the Mahakaran Sharir or the mega causal body has also been transcended or renounced by this yogi. So the thing is to understand here is that the desire for sensory gratification is the root cause of association of soul with Prakriti or with the mortal world. Therefore, the destruction of these memories of sensory gratification, which are at the root cause of the mortal world and their associated desires also, this becomes essential for the soul to make it upward journey into the conscious world. The flow of Prakriti does not stop by just making theoretical speeches like the one we are making today, or through outer renunciation. We go and we make a sankalp or resolve, or we make results that we are going to renounce this, we are going to renounce that. That does not result in a permanent flow of Prakriti. The permanent flow of Prakriti only stops after the destruction of memories and desires of sensory gratification in the chit through the practice of yoga. Through the practice of yoga meditation. after which the yogi gets elevated to the highest level of spiritual growth, spiritual progress, and the yoga meditation pathway of Vahingam Yoga clears this bondage of memories and desires of sensory gratification, that is, sanskars from the soul, resulting in liberation from the bondage of Prakriti. So again, yogi, when get elevated to the highest level of spiritual progress through the yoga meditation, the Vahingam Yoga clears the bondage of the memories and desires of sensory gratification, that is called sanskars from the soul, resulting in liberation from the bondage of the Prakriti. So the difficult stage is a Mahakaran Sharir. To get rid from Mahakaran Sharir, you need to elevate at the higher yoga level, which is only possible through Vahingam Yoga. Vahingam Yoga clears the bondage of memories and desires of sensory gratification. Now, the next is detached body. This is egoistic state of the soul due to ignorance. Soul is detached from the Prakriti. Now, when the soul begins to believe due to ignorance that it itself is the Lord, then it begins to forget its true form, and it comes down into the flow of Prakriti. So the egoistic nature of the soul is called the detached state, because on the journey back into the self-realization, the soul is getting completely detached from the illusory nature or from the Prakriti. So this is the detachment. So in Hindi, this form is called the Kevalya Sharir. And what is the cause of the Kevalya Sharir? It is the egoistic thought of ignorance or due to ignorance that comes into the soul of Aham Brahmasmi. I am the Lord. The soul call itself that I am the Lord. This is kind of an egoistic thought in this state. Now, for the servant to believe that he is the master and that everything else is no different from him is a thought that can arise only due to ignorance. And this is the root cause of downfall of the soul. In reality, the soul can never become the supreme being. There are 6 eternal entities. The supreme being or the Lord is one of them, and the soul is another one of them. The 6 eternal entities always exist as separate entities. They do not merge into each other. One does not become the other. So what is the samadhi state then? So what is the samadhi state then? In the samadhi state of yoga meditation, the soul acquires the form and properties of the Lord, like an iron rod immersed in the fire acquires the form and properties of fire, but the iron rod does not become fire. When taken out of the fire, it comes back into the form of the iron. मां हिते थोरो सिंधीअ में तव्हांखे सम्झाईंदुमि त जेकॾहिं लोहो खे बाहि में विझे ऐं लोहो इहो महसूसु करे त मां बाहि आहियां, त इहो अहंकार आहे उन लोह जो। छाकाणि जॾहिं असां लोह खे बाहि खां ॿाहिरि कढंदासीं त उहो वापसि लोह जूं प्रॉपर्टीज़ अक्वायर कंदो। हिकिड़े वक़्त लाइ हू बाहि थी वञे थो, छाकाणि त हू बाहि जो हिसो आहे, पर हू असल में बाहि न आहे। सो इन स्टेज ते डिटैच बॉडी में सोल के अहंकार थींदो आहे त सोल उतां खां पोइ वरी वापसि हेठि किरंदो आहे. When taken out of the fire, it becomes back into the form of the iron. So does the soul after comes out of the state of samadhi. So in the state of samadhi or in salvation, the soul is consuming the bliss of the Supreme Being and acquire his form and properties. But it does not merge into the Supreme Being, like the inert objects merging into each other. With the derived object merging into the cause of origin, the soul is not derived from any entity. With the derived object merging into the cause of origin, the soul is not derived from any entity. It is an eternal entity. When the state of ignorance of the soul is lifted, the soul gets freed from the bondage of Prakriti. And then it consumes the pure bliss of the Lord. When the egoistic state of Aham Brahmasmi or I am the Lord is discarded, then this detached body form or the Kevalya Sharir of the soul becomes also discarded. And then the soul begins to flow into the current of love, Prem Parva for the Lord. And the master-servant relationship is rekindled. The soul in this state comes into its pure form, and in absence of any Prakriti, its consciousness is pulled upward to the Supreme Being. The egoistic state of Aham Brahmasmi is the one that results in the downward flow of the soul into the Prakriti or inert nature or illusionary nature, and the destruction therefore of the ignorance results in the upward flow of consciousness of the soul, upon which the detached body state of the soul vanishes. Now after this master-servant relationship is restored, then the Supreme Being is attained through pure devotion, and this results in salvation. The yogi neutralizes the doubtful, ignorant, detached state of Kevalya through his yogic meditation practice at the highest level, and then he becomes successful and grateful upon achieving the state of salvation and the Lord. So in summary, the detached body form is the one that brings the soul into doubtful and is also the one which completely detaches the soul from Prakriti on its way up toward the state of complete knowledge. So this detached body is a difficult state where the soul can come down if soul himself considered as a Lord. So the next slide will discuss the Swan or Hans state. Finally, the Swan state. The Swan state, now through the practice of yoga meditation, the detached form of the soul, which is Kevalya Sharir, is renounced. And when this is renounced, the soul gets free of the state of ignorance or a Gyan in which it was forced due to its association with illusory nature or Prakriti. In this pure conscious state, the soul now enters into the ocean of the experiential world, that is the Lord. The soul gets completely immersed in this ocean like a fish in the water, and it becomes blissful in the acquisition of the form and properties of the Lord. This is the swan state of the soul. It is like that of fish in the water, swimming in water to reach the ocean, and once it reaches the ocean, it happily immerses into it. In the same way, the pure soul becomes successful and grateful after achieving the bliss of the Lord. And this is the highest state of explicit experience that can be had by the pure state of the soul. So this is a slide 15 which says Samadhi state of Vahingam Yoga. So in the Samadhi state of Vahingam Yoga meditation, where there is a complete absence of the three attributes of nature or Prakriti, only then the yogi achieves stability in his unbroken Samadhi state for a very long period and remain immersed in the bliss of the Lord. The Samadhi state of yoga meditation is attained only upon disassociation with Prakriti. Therefore, the Samadhi that you hear from other yoga meditation methodologies, it is obtained within the domain of the Prakriti. The Samadhi that you hear from other yoga meditation methodologies is obtained within the domain of Prakriti. That is inert Samadhi. What is the differentiated between Jada Samadhi and Chetan Samadhi? What is the difference between Jada Samadhi and Chetan Samadhi? The Jada Samadhi can be obtained by you at any time when you are completely immersed in an object. There are two kinds of Samadhis, Jada Samadhi and Chetan Samadhis. Jada Samadhi is obtained when you are completely immersed in an object, when your mind and intellect are completely immersed in the manas and vivechan, or in the rumination of any object, even in thoughts of the past. There's a chintan going on in the chit along with the mind. You could be in the state of samadhi because at that time the word doesn't exist for you. So you are completely immersed, but that is Jada Samadhi. That is not Chetan Samadhi. That is an inert Samadhi. That is the state of Samadhi within the realm of Prakriti. Vahingam yogi achieve a state of conscious Samadhi in which there is no Prakriti. The soul acquires its pure form, devoid of Prakriti, and then enjoys the bliss of the Lord in the state of complete knowledge, where all ignorance is gone. The swan state where all ignorance is gone, because recall, when there is ignorance, the swan state changes into the Kevalya state. So in the state of complete knowledge, in the conscious realm, the soul attains the Lord, and after the knowledge of Vahingam yogi stabilizes, it keeps on getting brighter with each passing day, and the yogi stays in bliss. Hatha yogis operate in the domain of the mortal world. As we said, their inert samadhi state lasts only till they can stabilize the mind and the pranas or the vital life forces through breath exercise. After that, the flow of their consciousness into the outer world resumes and everything gets back to normal. However, Vahingam yogis, once they attain the Lord, they always stay immersed in that conscious flow of nectarous bliss at the abode of the Lord. Therefore, Vahingam yogi is a Vedic experiential pathway in which the soul breaks away from the base of the property, and only after this breakaway is the samadhi state or the state of devotion obtained in its entirety. In its entirety. In this state, as we said earlier, there is a complete lack of lethargy and sleep. Even when a yogi is not in the state of samadhi, he completes his sleep in a few hours. Therefore, he resumes his inner immersion of devotion to the Lord, the flow of the consciousness of this yogi to Prakriti or in the outer domain through the sense organ, and the organs of deed completely stop during the samadhi state. And the pure relationship of the soul with the Supreme Being stably emerge. The yogis can maintain their samadhi state of Vahingam Yoga meditation for a very long period of time, maybe for 6 months at a time, during which they are able to maintain this unbroken state through a stable body posture. These are the symptoms of detachment of the soul from the causal or the mega-causal body, and upon renunciation of this state, the soul leaves Prakriti and comes into is conscious form. So, to conclude, the mind and our senses work only after associating with the energy of the soul. The yoga meditation practitioner does not have awareness of the mortal body upon the inward turn of energy of the soul. Hence, there is no action related to the outward association of his mortal body. In other words, his soul transcends the outer world when the consciousness of his soul gets connected within into his subtle body. Since the gross and mortal body is not conscious, it is discarded during yoga meditation. The attainment of the Lord and the liberation happen through this every mortal body and human life. Through the science of yoga meditation, the soul progressively detaches from its association with Prakriti. It comes to its pure form. It offers devotion to the Supreme Lord from its conscious form, and it attains the blissful form of the Lord. Prakriti gets progressively discarded as the energy of the soul progressively increases, and the ultimate happiness or bliss of the Lord is obtained through yoga meditation. So, with this, I would like to end my presentation for today. Thank you all for your patient listening, and I appreciate once again your patience and your support. Thank you. Thank you.